Hey guys, welcome to After the Noise, and today we will go through the book Ikigai, the Japanese secret to a long and happy life. Before you settle in, let me ask you something quietly, not out loud, but honestly, because the answer to this question decides how this next half hour will change you. Why do some people wake up with energy even at 80, while others feel tired at 25? Why do some lives stretch long and peaceful, while others feel rushed, anxious, and empty even when they are full of achievements? And what if the secret is not motivation, not discipline, not success, but something far simpler, something so subtle that most people miss it entirely? This audiobook will not shout at you. It will not motivate you aggressively. It will walk with you through a single human life, from youth to old age, and by the end, you will understand why the Japanese say that when you find your Ikigai, death itself becomes patient. Let us begin. On the northern edge of Okinawa, where the sea moves slower and the mornings arrive gently, there once lived a boy named Haruto. The village was small, surrounded by green hills, and so quiet that you could hear the wind passing through banana leaves long before you felt it on your skin. Haruto was not special, not gifted, not extraordinary. He was simply awake. Awake in the way children are before the world teaches them to rush. Every morning, Haruto watched his grandfather rise before the sun, not because he had to, not because someone paid him, but because his body expected meaning from the day. His grandfather would tie his sandals, step outside, bow slightly toward the sky, and begin tending a small garden that produced far more than the family ever needed. When Haruto once asked him why he worked even though he was old, the old man smiled and said something that Haruto would not understand until decades later. "If I stop," he said, "the day will not recognize me." That sentence would quietly shape Haruto's entire life. In modern psychology, there is an uncomfortable truth most people avoid. The human mind does not collapse from hardship alone. It collapses when effort loses meaning. Studies show that people who feel unnecessary age faster, fall ill sooner, and recover slower. This is not philosophy. This is biology. The brain releases stress hormones not when work is hard, but when work feels pointless. And this is where Ikigai begins, not as a concept, but as a survival mechanism hidden inside culture. Haruto grew up watching the elders of his village move slowly but purposefully. None of them spoke about retirement. None of them counted years. They counted seasons. They counted harvests. They counted moments of contribution. And without realizing it, Haruto was absorbing a rule that the modern world has forgotten, that staying alive is not the same as feeling alive. As a young man, Haruto left the village to study in the city. The buildings were tall, the streets loud, and time moved differently there. People woke up already tired, ate without tasting, worked without seeing results, and slept without rest. For the first time, Haruto saw people who were busy but empty, productive but disconnected. He felt it too. The days began to blur, and something inside him started to shrink. This is where dark psychology quietly enters the story. The human brain evolved to handle scarcity, not abundance. When choices multiply without meaning, anxiety increases. When goals exist without personal connection, motivation decays. Haruto did everything he was supposed to do. He studied. He worked. He earned. And yet, each night, he felt a strange weight, not sadness, but dullness, the kind that slowly convinces you that this is just how life feels. One evening, after years in the city, Haruto returned to his village for a festival. The same hills. The same wind. The same slow rhythm. His grandfather was gone now, but the garden was still alive, tended by neighbors who considered it an honor, not a task. Haruto stood there, watching an old woman laugh as she pulled weeds, her hands shaking but steady in purpose. And something clicked. Ikigai is not passion. Passion burns fast. Ikigai is quieter. It is the reason your body agrees to wake up. Neuroscience tells us that when action aligns with identity, the brain releases dopamine in a stable, sustainable way. When action chases validation, dopamine spikes and crashes. The elders of Okinawa were not chasing happiness. They were maintaining alignment. Haruto stayed longer this time. He began helping in the fields, not because he needed money, but because he needed grounding. And for the first time in years, time slowed down. Hours passed unnoticed. His mind stopped racing. This state, which psychology later named flow, was something the villagers entered naturally. When challenge matched skill, when effort met meaning, the ego dissolved. This is one of the most dangerous truths for modern society. A distracted mind ages faster. Studies show that chronic distraction weakens memory, increases stress, and accelerates mental decline. Flow, on the other hand, strengthens neural pathways, reduces anxiety, and creates a sense of timelessness. Haruto felt younger not because he rested, but because he engaged. He realized then that Ikigai was not a destination. It was a daily agreement between who you are and what you do. As years passed, Haruto chose a different life. He did not abandon work. He redefined it. He became a craftsman, repairing tools, teaching younger villagers, and slowly becoming someone the day recognized. His mornings had shape again. His nights had peace. And here is the uncomfortable question for you, the listener, one that will follow you through the rest of this audiobook. If everything you do tomorrow disappeared, would your day still feel necessary? Hold that thought. Because Haruto's life is only halfway told, and the most important lessons of Ikigai reveal themselves not in youth, but in aging, loss, and resilience. As Haruto entered the middle years of his life, the kind of years where the body is still strong but the mind begins to question direction, he noticed something subtle but profound. Time no longer felt endless, yet it did not feel threatening either. It felt valuable. Each day seemed to ask him a quiet question: what will you give today so that tomorrow still wants you? Haruto's work as a craftsman grew slowly, not through ambition, but through reliability. People began to seek him out, not because he advertised himself, but because he was present, consistent, and careful. Tools repaired by Haruto lasted longer. Not because he used better materials, but because he cared in a way that machines could not replicate. This care was not emotional. It was focused attention. And attention, as psychology reveals, is one of the most powerful forms of energy the human mind can offer. Modern research confirms something ancient cultures understood instinctively. When attention is fragmented, stress increases. When attention is unified, the nervous system relaxes. Haruto did not know these studies, but his body responded anyway. He slept deeply. He woke easily. His appetite regulated itself. This was not discipline. It was alignment. There is a dark psychological illusion that traps many people at this stage of life. The illusion that comfort equals safety. The brain, wired to conserve energy, pushes humans toward ease, automation, and rest. But prolonged ease without purpose creates stagnation. Haruto saw this in visitors from the city who came seeking peace, only to grow restless after a few weeks. Their minds have forgotten how to engage without stimulation. The elders of the village often said that a body in motion stays young, but what they truly meant was that a mind in motion refuses to decay. Haruto continued working, teaching, learning, and adjusting. He did not cling to routine for comfort. He refined it for meaning. Each year, he made small improvements, not because he wanted growth, but because stagnation felt unnatural. This is where Ikigai separates itself from motivation culture. Motivation is explosive. Ikigai is gravitational. Motivation demands intensity. Ikigai invites consistency. Neuroscience shows that habits anchored to identity require less willpower and create less stress. Haruto was not forcing himself forward. He was being pulled gently by relevance. As he aged, loss entered his life quietly, the way it always does. Friends passed. Strength softened. Speed reduced. But something unexpected happened. While the body slowed, the mind widened. Haruto began to see life not as a series of goals, but as a rhythm. He adjusted his work. He delegated heavy tasks. He focused more on teaching than doing. This transition is critical and often misunderstood. Many people lose purpose when they can no longer perform at peak levels. But Ikigai evolves. It does not demand youth. It adapts to age. Psychological studies on longevity show that people who reframe usefulness rather than resist aging live longer and recover faster from illness. Haruto embodied this without ever naming it. He became a guide. Younger villagers sat with him in the evenings, listening not to advice, but to stories. Stories of mistakes. Stories of patience. Stories of moments when stopping would have been easier, but continuing felt right. These stories carried weight because they were lived, not rehearsed. One evening, a young man asked Haruto a question that revealed the core anxiety of the modern mind. He asked, "How do you know if what you are doing is enough?" Haruto did not answer immediately. He watched the sky darken. Then he said, "When the day ends and you do not feel the need to escape from yourself, that is enough." This answer reflects a powerful psychological truth. The need for constant distraction is often a symptom of internal misalignment. When actions contradict values, the mind seeks noise. When actions express values, silence feels safe. Haruto's evenings were quiet, not because he avoided stimulation, but because his mind had nothing to flee from. As years passed, Haruto noticed something else. His peers in the village aged differently than people he remembered from the city. They bent, but they did not collapse. They slowed, but they did not withdraw. Medical studies later observed the same phenomenon: lower rates of dementia, reduced chronic inflammation, and stronger immune responses among people with sustained purpose. Ikigai was not philosophy. It was preventative medicine. Haruto continued to walk every morning, slowly now, greeting the same trees, the same paths, the same neighbors. Repetition did not bore him. It grounded him. Repetition with meaning reinforces neural stability. This is why rituals calm the nervous system. The village itself functioned as a living system of Ikigai, where everyone had a place, not assigned by productivity, but by presence. He ate simply, not because of dietary rules, but because his appetite adjusted naturally. He stopped eating when satisfied, not full. Modern science later confirmed that caloric moderation reduces cellular damage and slows aging, but Haruto did not count calories. He listened to his body. When the mind is calm, the body communicates clearly. There is a darker truth hidden here, one rarely discussed. Chronic stress ages cells faster than time. Telomeres, the protective ends of chromosomes, shorten more rapidly under prolonged anxiety. People do not age simply because they grow old. They age because their nervous systems remain in survival mode for too long. Haruto's life rhythm prevented this. His nervous system trusted tomorrow. One winter, Haruto fell ill. Not seriously, but enough to confine him indoors for weeks. This is often where purpose fractures. When movement stops, identity trembles. But Haruto adapted. He began carving small wooden objects, teaching children who visited, telling stories to anyone who listened. His purpose compressed, but it did not disappear. This adaptability is the silent strength of Ikigai. Purpose that depends on one form breaks when conditions change. Purpose rooted in contribution reshapes itself. Psychologists call this resilience. The village called it wisdom. As Haruto recovered, he realized something important. Ikigai is not about adding years to life. It is about adding life to years. He did not fear death. He respected it. Fear arises when life feels incomplete. Peace arises when life feels expressed. And now, as his hair turned white and his steps slowed further, Haruto became something else entirely. He became proof. Proof that a life does not need to be loud to be meaningful. Proof that usefulness does not expire. Proof that the human body listens carefully to how the mind treats time. The final phase of Haruto's life will reveal the deepest layer of Ikigai, the one that only becomes visible when the future shortens and the present becomes precious. And this brings us back to you, listening now, moving through your own middle years, your own questions, your own quiet doubts. If your body slowed tomorrow, would your purpose survive? Sit with that question. Because the final answers arrive not at the beginning of life, but at the end. In the final years of Haruto's life, time no longer felt like something moving toward him. It felt like something flowing through him. Days were shorter, not because the sun set earlier, but because his body needed less noise, less effort, less proving. And yet, something remarkable remained unchanged. Every morning, he still woke up before the village fully stirred, not out of habit, not out of obligation, but because his inner clock still believed he was needed. This is a detail most people overlook when they talk about long life. Longevity is not sustained by medicine alone. It is sustained by relevance. The brain, even in old age, searches for signals that say, "You still matter here." When those signals disappear, decline accelerates. When they remain, the body cooperates longer than science expects. Haruto no longer worked with tools the way he once did. His hands trembled slightly now. His vision softened. But the village adjusted naturally, without ceremony. Children came to listen. Young adults came to ask. Elders came to sit in shared silence. Haruto had become something rare in the modern world. He had become a point of continuity. Psychology has a term for this stage of life. Generativity. It is the phase where meaning comes not from achievement, but from transmission. From knowing that something of you will move forward without you needing to control it. Haruto did not rush to pass lessons. He let people absorb them naturally, through observation, through stories, through presence. One afternoon, a visitor from the city asked Haruto a question filled with fear disguised as curiosity. He asked, "What should I do so I can live as long as you?" Haruto smiled gently, not because the question was foolish, but because it was incomplete. He answered slowly, choosing words the way one chooses stones to cross a river. "Do not aim to live long," he said. "Aim to live fully enough that length becomes irrelevant." That sentence holds a deep psychological truth. When the mind obsesses over outcomes, it disconnects from process. When it commits to process, outcomes take care of themselves. Studies on aging consistently show that people who focus on daily engagement rather than distant goals experience less anxiety and better health. Haruto had lived this truth long before science confirmed it. As seasons passed, Haruto's world shrank geographically but expanded internally. His walks were shorter, but more attentive. His meals were simpler, but more satisfying. His conversations were fewer, but deeper. This is not decline. This is refinement. The nervous system, when no longer overloaded, enters a state of efficiency. Energy is conserved not through withdrawal, but through precision. There is a dark misconception that aging is primarily loss. Loss of strength. Loss of speed. Loss of relevance. But what Haruto demonstrated was different. Aging, when paired with Ikigai, is a shift in function, not a disappearance of value. The problem is not age. The problem is purposelessness. On a quiet morning, as light filtered softly into his home, Haruto felt something different. Not pain. Not fear. A sense of completion. He did not announce it. He did not dramatize it. He simply sat, breathing steadily, listening to the sounds he had known his entire life. The wind. The birds. The distant rhythm of the village beginning its day. This moment matters. Because how a person meets the end reveals how they lived. Haruto's mind was calm. There was no unfinished panic. No urgent regret. Psychological studies on end-of-life awareness show that people who lived in alignment experienced significantly less fear in their final stages. Their minds are not searching for alternate versions of themselves. They are resting inside the one they became. Haruto passed quietly, not as someone who had escaped death, but as someone who had never been running from life. The village gathered, not in shock, but in gratitude. His tools were already in use by others. His stories were already alive in younger voices. His Ikigai had done what it was meant to do. It had connected him so deeply to life that leaving it did not feel like disappearance. And now, the story turns back toward you. Because Ikigai is not Japanese property. It is human inheritance. It exists wherever a person wakes up with a reason that feels internally true. It is not found by searching harder. It is found by listening quieter. By noticing what makes time soften instead of race. By recognizing what kind of effort feels nourishing rather than draining. Dark psychology warns us that the modern world thrives on disconnection. On convincing you that your worth is external, measurable, and conditional. Ikigai dismantles that illusion. It roots worth in contribution, presence, and continuity. Not what you achieve once, but what you sustain over time. So here is the question I want you to carry, and I want you to answer it honestly in the comments, not for algorithms, but for yourself. If everything you were chasing disappeared tomorrow, what would still make you get up in the morning? Think about that. Sit with it. Do not rush to answer. Because when you find that answer, even partially, you are no longer just living. You are participating. Thank you for listening till the end. Thank you for giving your attention, which is the most valuable currency you own. A special thanks to the members of the After the Noise community who support this channel and make deep content like this possible. Your names appear here not as donors, but as believers in thoughtful living. If this audiobook gave you even one moment of clarity, one pause of reflection, one quiet insight, then take a second to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to After the Noise for more timeless ideas explained calmly and deeply. And remember, a long life is not something you chase. It is something that happens when your days feel worth repeating. Until next time.